Tonight, on First at 9 this Friday the 21st of February 2025. Cuffed cops. Several suspects arrested over Halstroff and Middennier murders. Police constables among suspects arrested. Damning accusations. Public Security Minister affirms national security. Alleges that organized crime proliferated with patronage of past administrations. The correct path. Opposition leaders skeptical of IMF program's chances of success.
159ක අනිවාර්යෙන්ම යන්න සිද්ධ වෙලා තිබෙනවා දෙවෙනි තුන්වෙනි හතරවෙනි ණය ප්‍රතිව්‍යුහ ගත කරන වැඩසටහන.
Government defends their economic policy.
ඉතාමත්ම කෙටි කාලයකින් ණය ප්‍රතිව්‍යුහ ගතකරණයනොත් ඉක්මනට නිදහස් වෙලා අපේ බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන ආර්ථික වෙනසකට අපිට යන්න පුළුවන් වෙයි කියන විශ්වාසය අපිට තියෙනවා.
Requests not to be judged on past metrics.
මේ ආණ්ඩුවට අවුරුදු 5-6ක් ගියා වාගේ එතන ඉඳන් ඇඟිල්ල දික් කරන්න එපා කියලා අපි මතක් කරනවා.
Ambition and innovation. President vows to support Sri Lankan entrepreneurs and innovators.
දේශීය ව්‍යවසායකයන්ට මෙන් නව උත්පාදකයන්ට විශේෂ ආරාධනාවක් දීමට මම කැමැතියි. ඔබගේ අදහසේ සිට අවසන් ප්‍රතිඵලය දක්වා වූ ගමනේදී අප ඔබට සහාය දීමට සූදානම්.
Asserts ambition for $19 billion export revenue this year.
Chilo Dairy, Sri Lankawama Kiren Perata. ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දිනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
කට්ට පරිස්සම් කරගත්තොත් අපි පරිස්සම්.
This is Ada Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to Ada Derana First at 9. I'm Aditya Drisingha joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. Brought to you by the only Sri Lanka media network to rise to the pinnacle across all media platforms, recognized as the best by every survey and beloved by the people. Now in your top story tonight, in the aftermath of the fatal Halstroff court shooting, which sent shockwaves across the nation, law enforcement officials have nabbed several key figures with purported ties to Ganemulla Sanjeeva's murder. The arrests include that of suspected shooter, his driver and a police constable with alleged ties to the female suspect who smuggled the murder weapon into court. According to the authorities, the female suspect is still evading arrest, with efforts underway to apprehend her as soon as possible. Meanwhile, Ganemulla Sanjeeva's final rites were performed today at the Burella General Cemetery.
The notorious drug trafficker and underworld leader Sanjeeva Kumara Samararatna alias Ganemulla Sanjeeva was shot dead on the 19th of February at Halfstope Magistrates Court No. 5. The suspected assailant who arrived at the court complex disguised as a lawyer fled the scene immediately after committing the crime. After successfully escaping the scene of the crime, the suspect discarded his clothing near Ridivella Road, Kochikade, where he rendezvoused with the female suspect. The female suspect allegedly assisted the assailant by smuggling the murder weapon into court. Subsequently, the suspected assailant was apprehended by the police special task force within 8 hours of the murder. At the time of his arrest, the suspect was travelling in a rented van. According to reports, the suspect and the driver of the van, who was also arrested, replaced the license plate of the rented van to avoid suspicion. The suspected assailant was identified as 27-year-old Samindu Dilshan Piyumanga Kadanarachi, a resident of Maharagama who had briefly served in the Sri Lanka Army's Commando Regiment. During the interrogations, the suspect revealed that he and the female suspect who aided him in committing the murder checked into a lodge in Kaduwela on the 17th of February. It was further revealed that an individual who arrived in a car had handed over a parcel to the duo which contained several items of clothing among other items required for the murder. Subsequently, the same individual had arrived in the morning on the 19th to pick the two suspects up from Kaduwela and drop them off at Halfstope. Upon subsequent efforts, the police have successfully arrested the driver in question along with the car. In the meantime, the suspected shooter's romantic partner was also arrested by the Maharagama police and has since been handed over to the Colombo Crimes Division. Investigations have uncovered that the suspected shooter intended to flee the country along with his partner. To that end, the suspect had tasked an accomplice with picking his partner up from Maharagama and dropping her off in Negombo. The accomplice had also been arrested and handed over to the Colombo Crimes Division under the instructions of Western Province South Deputy Inspector General of Police Gayantha Marapana. Meanwhile, a 26-year-old police constable who had a close relationship with the female suspect, identified as Ishara Sewandi Veerasinghe, was also arrested by the Colombo Crimes Division. The police constable was identified as Lahiru Prasanna Atugala, a resident of Pradeniya. According to law enforcement sources, the female suspect had sent images of a firearm similar to the one used for the murder to the constable, which have later been deleted. The police suspect that the constable was made aware of the murder before it was committed. However, appearing before the Colombo Chief Magistrate's Court today, the suspected constable denied any connection to the murder or to the female suspect. Subsequently, the court ordered the suspected constable to be held in remand custody till the 7th of March this year. Meanwhile, according to breakthroughs made while interrogating the suspected shooter, Ganemulla Sanjeeva was murdered as revenge for the murder of Kesel Baddara Padme's father, which was allegedly committed by Ganemulla Sanjeeva. Ganemulla Sanjeeva's remains were brought yesterday to a private funeral parlour in Borella. Ganemulla Sanjeeva's final rites were performed this evening at the Borella General Cemetery. In the meantime, the Old Ceylon Judicial Services United Federation displayed banners in front of courts across the island protesting the fatal shooting.
Now, as the nation looks on towards law enforcement agencies to establish order against a backdrop of several high-profile murders causing nationwide distress, the Sri Lanka police has arrested 3 suspects over the Middeni triple murder, where a father along with his children aged 6 and 9 were shot dead. According to reports, among the arrested suspects is a constable attached to the Tangaul police.
On the 18th of February, a group of unidentified gunmen opened fire at 3 individuals, a 39-year-old man, his 6-year-old daughter and 9-year-old son, while they were travelling on a motorcycle. The shooting took place at around 10:15 p.m. at the Kadewatta junction in Middeniya. The 39-year-old father of 2 and his 6-year-old daughter succumbed to their injuries on the spot, while the 9-year-old son was rushed to hospital for treatment, where he too was later pronounced dead. The 39-year-old individual was identified as Aruna Vidanagamage alias Kajja, a prominent underworld operator. According to the police, the deceased was alleged to have committed several crimes, including extortion of betting centres. So far, investigating authorities have arrested 3 suspects over the triple murder, including a police constable attached to the Tangaul police. The constable was arrested for allegedly providing the deceased with 2 pairs of handcuffs, which were recovered at the scene of the crime by the authorities. Meanwhile, the police revealed that the motive for the murder is yet to be ascertained.
Now, drawing attention to the recent spike in murders and crimes, the Minister of Public Security claims that organised crime proliferated island-wide with political patronage in the past. The minister went on to claim that political support for organised crime has now been rooted out and that national security is not under threat anymore.
I have forwarded all requests made regarding the security of MPs to the Acting Inspector General of the Police after duly considering them myself. The government deeply regrets the shooting which took place at the Halfstop Magistrates Court. The suspect who shot the deceased was arrested within 8 hours of the incident. The Inspector General of Police submitted a report on the fatal shooting to me. According to the report, efforts are underway to apprehend Ishara Sewandi Veerasinghe, aged 25. She arrived at the scene of the crime with the shooter. Furthermore, Police Constable Lahiru Prasanna Atugala, bearing badge number 102216, who is suspected to have aided and abetted the suspects to commit the murder, was arrested yesterday. He has maintained contact with the suspects before and after the crime. Certain factions of the opposition are attempting to blow this incident out of proportion by claiming that national security is under threat. This is not the first shooting to have happened within court premises. However, we will not take this shooting lightly. The government has taken the matter very seriously. About an hour ago, we were able to successfully nab 3 individuals who are suspected to have caused the murders of Aruna Vidanagamage and his 2 children. Accordingly, 3 people have been arrested over this triple murder. Furthermore, Police Constable IL Janaka Prasad, bearing badge number 82493, has also been arrested over his alleged involvement in this triple murder. We know how organised crime proliferated over the past 2-3 decades. Syndicates of organised crime were set up with political patronage. Drug trafficking, theft, robbery and extortion were all linked to organised crime. All these criminals were protected by politicians. Most of these syndicates rose to power when certain groups within the opposition wielded power. Criminal activity prospered because they protected it. Now they raise their voices against organised crime. We have now rooted out the political support which enabled criminal activity. None of our MPs have ties to organised crime. The opposition also raised concern on the safety and security of judges. We have not interfered at all with the security provided to judges. We will never jeopardise national security. These are isolated incidents. We will take all steps necessary to prevent such incidents in the future. We have already taken some very strong strides ahead. Unfortunately, we cannot reveal those steps in Parliament without causing prejudice to the investigation. However, we will provide updates on these investigations to this House. The minister claims that certain members of the opposition politically sponsored criminals while they were in power in the past. Making such an open-ended accusation implicates all opposition MPs across the board. Who are these MPs particularly? What is their affiliation to organised crime? They must be brought before the law. Not doing so causes great injustice to us. According to media reports, the suspect was nabbed after authorities were tipped off about his location from a source in Dubai. The suspect was not arrested over the heroics of local authorities. The suspect was betrayed by underworld operators in Dubai. We have still not been able to arrest the female suspect. Also, the murder suspect was made a national hero by publicising his picture. This is extremely wrong. It should not be done. The suspect was made a hero. This should not repeat. The minister must investigate this matter. Certain images used by the media are AI generated. MPs must make themselves aware regarding these developments. I cannot guarantee that every media report made is true. My statements were based on police investigations. I made my statement responsibly. You must not demean police investigations by making statements as such.
ඔබ සමගින් පෙරට Union Assurance. චන්දුරුසුමේ කාගෙන් මන අපේ සිංහ TV සඳහා සුපිරි ඩීල්.
Don't waste time. Start your degree with pending A-level results this February with our partner universities. Call ACBT on 0117 699 499.
Less sugar, same great taste. From Melbourne.
Moving on to your budget-related updates. Opening the fourth day of the budget debate, opposition leader Sajith Premadasa expressed doubt regarding Sri Lanka's chances of succeeding under the IMF program, claiming that over half the nations that entered IMF pacts had to attempt debt restructuring on multiple occasions. However, government MPs defended their economic policy, claiming that debt restructuring will be completed swiftly, and requested the opposition not to hasten to pass judgment on the new government, citing their relative short term so far.
The President in the budget speech affirmed that we will be ready to resume debt repayments by 2028. That is excellent. We too hope that will be the case. Since 1975, 75 countries entered IMF agreements. 59% of those countries had to restructure debts for second, third and even fourth times. Do not say that I am attempting to fearmonger. We were made aware of this fact during discussions conducted under Chatham House rules with a group that advised the previous government when drafting the current IMF agreement.
The opposition claims that we will have to restructure debt once again under the IMF program. Although that is your hope, no one else in the country wishes that. Even though 55 other countries had to restructure debts twice, with our short-term economic growth, we are confident of completing debt restructuring swiftly and moving towards the desired economic transformation.
The budget clearly mentions a salary increment. However, civil servants will only receive the full increment after 3 years. Before a marriage, the groom's family inquires about the dowry and the bride's family makes various promises. However, after the wedding, the proposed dowry is reduced to 10% of what was originally promised. After 1 or 2 years, when the couple hasn't conceived a child, they receive none of the promised dowry. Do not let this be the case with the salary increment. I urge the minister to allocate 325 billion rupees for this purpose.
325ක් ගරු ඇමතිතුමා. මේ වෙනුවෙන් වෙන් කරා
325ටත් වඩා වැඩි වෙනවා. මොකද ලබන අවුරුද්දක් තියෙනකොට තව 30000කට වැඩියෙන් රාජ්‍ය සේවයට එකතු වෙනවා. එකතු වුණාම මේකටත් වඩා ටිකක් වැඩි වෙනවා.
බොහොම සතුටුයි. ඔන්න හොඳයි ඉන්න ඕනේ.
I'm glad. This is what should happen. I will tell what happened during our government. We formed an intellectual society which laid out plans pertaining to the economy. However, now does this opposition possess even a single member who can be identified as an intellectual? I am simply explaining our plight. However, that must not happen to you too.
ඒක ඔබට නොවේවා. ඔබ විනාශ
This government just started operations in taking forward this country which you destroyed and made bankrupt. This government was only established a short time ago. Do not point fingers at this government like it has held power for 5 or 6 years. This country which had fallen to the bottom of a pit was merely lifted up to the edge of the precipice when the maiden budget was presented.
ලින්ගැට්ටර ගත්තා විතරයි.
විවෘත ආර්ථිකය ලිබරල් ආර්ථික
Even though they have embraced an open, liberal economy, it doesn't suit them. The JVP was the voice of the poor. However, it is us who have a connection with the poor. I heard a minister using a derogatory term to address his driver.
කතා කරනවා ඩ්‍රයිවර් මහත්තයාට.
President Anura Dissanayake revealed that Sri Lanka expects to generate export revenue of $19 billion in 2025. Addressing a gathering in Colombo, the head of state went on to say that the government is willing to support Sri Lanka's entrepreneurs and innovators in their respective journeys. Meanwhile, Chief Advisor to the President on Digital Economy, Dr. Hans Vijayasuriya, noted that it is imperative to focus on areas of investment within the scope of virtual infrastructure.
The Innovation Island Summit 2025, organised with the aim of transforming Sri Lanka to a global innovation hub, was held in Colombo last evening. The event was graced by representatives of 50 nations and professionals of various sectors, as well as President Anura Dissanayake.
So DPI is digital public infrastructure, intrinsically open infrastructures. Therefore, there's open innovation which can take place on top of digital public infrastructures. A digital ID, for example, is a key digital public infrastructure. The payment networks in a country, key digital public infrastructure. You spoke about AI. I think so there are opportunities and there are threats, because on one hand, you'll be enabling tasks to be carried out much cheaper, much faster, and with far less complication. On the other hand, there would be a displacement of digital ecosystems. So these are all topics that we are incorporating within the institutional framework as well as the policy framework, and backed by new legislation which is in the making. So when we innovation point of view, I would say we should look at virtual with respect to any form of investment. So why could we not have virtual infrastructure in which global investors can participate?
Right,
anchoring on the strengths of Sri Lankan human capital and capability.
මෙම වසරේදී අපි අපේක්ෂා කරන ආර්ථික වර්ධන වේගය 5% ඉක්මවා යන්න.
We expect economic growth exceeding 5% this year. We need to build industries around innovations, pave the way for agricultural modernization, improve harvesting technology, expand the industrial sector, and bolster efforts directed at providing efficient services in order to meet those targets. We expect to generate export revenue of $19 billion in 2025. Our efforts are directed at decentralizing the economy. If villagers do not have the necessary economic means for them to utilize labor, knowledge and time, they cannot reap economic benefits. We have taken steps to open up new avenues to ensure that rural folk have access to several streams of income. We are attempting to close the gap between ourselves and our closest competitor while working collaboratively. We call upon all local entrepreneurs and innovators, do not fear taking risks. Practice out-of-the-box thinking. We are ready to support you throughout your journey from a mere idea to its final outcome.
සීමාවන්ගෙන් ඔබට සිතන්න. ඔබගේ අදහසේ සිට අවසන් ප්‍රතිඵලය දක්වා වූ ගමනේදී අප ඔබට සහාය වීමට සූදානම්.
Fast track your career from O levels with eSoft.
ඩයබටිසෝල් සීනි වලින් පරිස්සම් වන ඔබට අමතක නොවන පෝෂණය.
Single 1111 up to 60% off from the 11th November to the 17th of November.
Kalani wire කිසිගින්නක් නෑ.
කිසිගින්නක් නෑ. Kalani Fire Shield Wire.
Malibu chocolate cream, inguru and lemon puff. Less sugar, same great taste. From Malibu.
Responsibility to look after our health.
The best nutritional supplement for diabetic patients with no added sugar. Maliban Vitagen. Stay healthy for a good reason.
Now let's take a look at some local news across the island in brief.
A 29-year-old man was shot dead on Moganavatta beach in Pamanugama last night by an unidentified shooter using a T-56 type firearm. The incident was captured on a nearby CCTV camera. Police claim that the identity of the shooter or the motive behind the murder is yet to be ascertained. Meanwhile, a software engineer named Gayan Vikramatilaka, who was arrested in Dubai and extradited to Sri Lanka over the OnMax DT pyramid scheme, was ordered to be placed under remand custody until the 7th of March by Colombo Chief Magistrate Tanuja Lakmali. In accordance with an Interpol red notice issued against the suspect on charges of creating and promoting the website related to OnMax DT, a group of officers from the Criminal Investigation Department arrived in Dubai, arrested the suspect and brought him back to Sri Lanka this morning. In other local news, former Senior Deputy Inspector General of Police Lalit Jaisinghe was sentenced to 4 years of rigorous imprisonment by the Vaunia High Court today. The sentence was issued after the former senior DIG was convicted of unlawfully releasing a suspect connected with the murder of 18-year-old student S. Vidya in Pungudutiv in 2015.
Welcome back. Now, the Ceylon Electricity Board says that it is making significant progress towards launching the Maha Oya Pumped Storage Hydropower Project, which is set to become Sri Lanka's first ever water battery. This groundbreaking 600 megawatt initiative will store excess renewable energy from solar and wind sources, ensuring grid stability and supporting Sri Lanka's goal of generating 70% of its electricity through renewable sources by 2030. The project, located in Aranayaka and Navalapitiya, will feature 2 reservoirs connected by a 2.5-kilometer tunnel operating as a large-scale energy storage system. By reducing dependence on fossil fuels and lowering carbon emissions, the project will play a crucial role in Sri Lanka's transition to sustainable energy. At a recent meeting, international development partners were introduced to the project's financial roadmap. The CEB aims to secure long-term funding for international agencies to minimize impacts on electricity tariffs while ensuring affordability for consumers. Now, in your business updates, a memorandum of understanding on exchange of regulatory and supervisory information between 2 central banks was signed by the Governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe, and the Governor of the Nepal Rashtra Bank, Mahaprasad Adhikari. The MOU was signed yesterday by the 2 governors at the Leaders Forum of the South Asian Regional Financial Inclusion Initiative of the Alliance for Financial Inclusion. The CEB governor highlighted the importance of collaboration among the member countries in advancing financial inclusion and emphasized the necessity in leveraging collective experiences, resources and technological capabilities to create a more inclusive and secure financial system. Now, in other economic-related updates, Sri Lanka's inflation dropped further to -4% in January 2025 from -2% in December 2024. The National Consumer Price Index for all items for January 2025 stood at 206.4, recording an increase of 1.8 index points or 0.88% compared to 204.6 in December last year. On a monthly basis, the year-on-year inflation of food group decreased to -2.5% in January 2025 from -1% in December 2024. Meanwhile, the year-on-year inflation of the non-food group decreased to -5.2% in January 2025 from -2.9% in December. With yesterday's downgrade, the Colombo Stock Exchange turned green today as a result of price gains in counters such as Commercial Bank, Belster Corp and John Keel's Holdings. The all-share price index climbed 0.18%, settling at 16,889.31 points. Meanwhile, the S&P Sri Lanka 20 climbed 0.60%, ending at 5,063.27 points. Market turnover stood at 3.5 billion rupees. The banking sector was the top contributor to market turnover, followed by the capital goods sector. Furthermore, foreigners closed as net sellers of loading shares worth 914 million rupees. That's all the news we have for you tonight. For further updates, stay in touch with Ada Derana, the nation's most trusted news source. Thank you. Have a great night.
For news and information you can trust 24 hours a day, visit adaderana.lk.